RWBY Volume 7, Episode 7, Worst Case Scenario. So, of course, this episode takes place after pretty much the fallout of the election and Penny's, supposed attack on Robyn and her, kind of just her normal crowd and all the people that were just kind of scattered about and murdered. And I thought it was interesting. I was surprised by the fact that it took place, a little bit after. Like, we didn't actually see the crazy riots and stuff. I was surprised we didn't get that because I was kind of hoping that we get like a crazy action episode and we get to see. It probably would have taken forever, admittedly, and the season has been kind of like this weird season, and I've probably referenced it a few times now, but the season's kind of been like a bit of a slow season. It's like, oh, here's like a little thing that's happened, and the last episode was one of them. I thought this was going to be a cool action episode where it would start to show what the different teams dealt with, which they still could have done within 18 minutes, just do like 3 or 4 minutes a piece. They still could have done that for like the different groups that were out there, because I would like to have seen that. That would have also required them to make like a bunch of new locations instead of just showing like the city blocks, which pretty much look the same all the time. So I was kind of shocked. I was like, okay, they kind of just went right into the chaos has already happened. It's kind of getting a little bit better. They're like this close to martial law because Ironwood doesn't exactly know what to do. There's still a bunch of secrets going around and the whole thing that's happening there. But it was cool. I was like, all right. So, obviously with the pillows there, Blake and Yang had kind of the biggest moment out of our 4 main characters. And it's because they make the decision to tell Robyn what's going on, or at least part of the story. We, of course, find out that her semblance is that she can tell when someone's lying or telling the truth. She's a human, lie detector. So that's kind of cool. She's also just skilled in general. So that was at least a small, entertaining, a little action sequence. But it makes sense why she has the 4 people she has. At least 2 of them, we get to see their ability. So, because I don't know their names yet. The girl with the blue hair, she can basically like create projections within like a certain bubble. She can make things invisible, and you kind of just see right through them. The sheep girl, she can see through. I'm sure there's something with that, and I was trying to figure it out as I was looking at it, because I'm like, I couldn't tell. If at first it seemed like, okay, she's kind of scanning through the building or through the trucks because she can see everything. She kind of scans through and she can mentally log what's in there. But then when they showed it the second time, it almost seemed like she like absorbed something out of the truck. And I was like, that could have just been the representation of her doing that. But I was like, that makes it seem like she literally gathered information because she didn't say anything. It wasn't like, okay, here's what's in this truck. It was kind of just like, all right, we got what we needed. That's kind of how it felt the second time they did it. So I was like, what exactly did she do? But I think that it really was just she scanning it. It was just the representation the second time where it looked like something was like flowing into her hand. I was like, well, that's weird. What's that? But I think ultimately it was just she can scan the truck. And I thought that was cool. She can like put her hand on something and just kind of scan through it and know exactly what's in there. So it makes sense why she's a part of the crew, because those are like some pretty good combinations for abilities. And it also explains why when they attacked them before, it was like, oh, there's just Robyn and 4 other women. It's like, oh, it's not like a big army deal or anything like that. It's like, no, they can handle it because you have someone similar in vein to Emerald, where they can, in a sense, make illusions. It's not really illusions. It's just you can't see her and whatever's within this bubble around her. And then you have someone, well, as far as like being able to just scan random stuff and see where people are, that wouldn't do anything in that location that they were actually in. Aside from knowing that Penny would have been in the truck, but I guess you would have to touch the truck. She can't just touch the ground. So I'm sure there are a bunch of limitations to that they probably will never get into anyway. But it was like, okay, it's cool to see some abilities. But of course, they're still in all the trucks. So it was like, all right, we're going to have the team split up. Blake and Yang are the ones to be in the truck that gets robbed. So they chase down Robyn, and they're able to tell her the truth, or at least half of it, because like, we can't tell you everything that's going on. We can't tell you exactly why. All we can say is we need these parts because we need this satellite to happen. Obviously, they don't make it as generic as that, but that's pretty much what it is. So it's like, okay. She's like, I'm not going to stop until, I know the complete truth. But now she's at least getting a bit closer to the side of the heroes, and we're at some point, it's just going to lead up to the truth. It's going to be like, oh, it was actually Tyrion. Like, holy crap, this is happening. Which, obviously, it's even in the intro as, like, her and Crow teaming up. So, eventually, it'll get to the point where she knows everything that's happening. She'll be with the heroes, and it'll be like, man, we really could have avoided a whole mess if we just told the truth. Story of the season, I bet. But we are where we are. So, it's like, all right, that's an interesting little moment. We'll see how that ends up playing out. We find out that the staff is actually what's holding up Atlas. I thought that was interesting. So that would be weird. If that ever fell apart, I think that would be like the second biggest change in the series that we've had. Because, of course, you have the fall of Beacon. If you have the floating castle, this floating city in the sky literally fall down onto the city beneath it and kill a bunch of people, and it just wipes out the whole thing, That would be insane. I doubt that'll happen because that would go into so many changes within the series. It's not just like, oh man, all these people died and stuff. Like the Fall of Beacon was like, holy crap, they destroyed the school, they destroyed the city. It's just chaos. Destroying that specific city would wipe out like dust manufacturing and stuff like that. And obviously, if Atlas falls on top of it, it's not like, oh, they just knocked it over. It's like, no, they landed on top of all the mountains. They landed on top of all the mining construction. It's just crushed, and then they would have to find a way to lift it out again, and who knows how that would work. Like as far as the gravity dust thing, people believe that, so how much of that dust would it actually take? And of course, I highly doubt they're like, well, what if someone steals the staff? Like that's probably not even a concern in their minds right now, because it just seems protected. So that was a cool little bit. I was like, all right, well, they have the staff, and that's actually what's keeping it there. So we have Ironwood and Oscar having their little conversation, and Oscar kind of grown up a little bit. Like, maybe you have to talk with the people you don't want to talk to most. And it's like, now you're definitely sounding like Ozpin. And it had a great line from Ironwood where he's like, eventually you won't know which is which. And Oscar was like, yeah. And it was like super depressing because it's like, I kind of want to be myself as a human being. And I thought that was cool. And that's something that, of course, they haven't touched on. I mean, Ozpin at this point isn't even in the show. So I'm curious how that's going to end up playing out going through the rest of the series. Like, how is that going to work? Is there going to be some crazy twist where Ozpin is able to, separate from Oscar, and maybe he goes back to his original body, or he just, flat out dies or something weird like that? I don't see how that would happen, what they could possibly do to change that, unless one of the other, items or, artifacts is able to do that sort of thing where he could come back in his own body. But who knows? Excuse me. It wouldn't be surprising if they did say that, because they literally summoned a genie. So it's kind of like, if they can pull a dude's soul out of somebody else's soul and then put it back in his old body, which they just poof summoned, I'd be like, sure, all right. I mean, they had a dragon dude blast the moon and go into space. So I'm like, at this point, bringing the dude back and putting him in his old body that's centuries old, millennia old at this point, I'd just be like, yeah, I can roll with that. Sure, whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. But for now, it's just like, it's just a little thing. Like, there's so many things to do in this show. Sometimes it's just like, man, I kind of want to learn more about this. I want to see what Oscar's thinking. I want to see what's going to happen with Ozpin. I would love for that to come back. I don't think Ozpin will even come back this volume because of some of the stuff that's going on with Salem. Like, I feel like Salem has to come in, which, no surprise. I think I mentioned this during my review for the finale last year. I was kind of annoyed with the ending of that because it was like, they have Salem, and it's like, I'm tired of this, and she's putting the wings on the gorillas and all that, and she's doing the, full Wizard of Oz treatment. But I'm like, you can't have a scene like that, and then she's not, like, going straight for the attack. Like, unless we find out very soon that she's been attacking somewhere else, and the characters just did not know, which makes sense because there's no communication. So, unless we find that out very soon, it's going to be weird that they had that scene, and then we go an entire volume, and she literally doesn't even show up. And it seemed like the way it ended is like she's going on the attack, which was kind of like a series finale type thing. Like, the last season is when that sort of scene should take place, and she hasn't even shown up. We've had, of course, the behind the scenes stuff with the politics and Tyrion, trying to frame them and kind of just tear the city apart mentally, which is working. And, they're doing a good job of that, of course. So it's like, all right, it's definitely interesting to see that. But also, that's even going slow for this volume. We're 8 episodes in at this point. Obviously, I'm doing this review late. So we're 8 episodes in. I don't know how many are going to be in the volume, but, 8 episodes in, I think we're about halfway through, or, close to it. And it's just like, yeah, it's still slowly but surely type stuff, and that's not really good enough for me, like, considering what's going on. So I don't think Ozpin is going to show up, because I just have my reservations that Salem will show up, because especially with what they're doing with Cinder and Neo, it's like, well, they haven't even shown up yet, and obviously their whole weird filler style story from the last volume, because technically they didn't really do anything. It was cool. We got one of my favorite songs. Neo's song is still one of my favorites now. So we got some great stuff. We got a great fight out of it. But they didn't do anything in the last volume. They fought, and then it was like, all right, we reconciled, and then they left, and they were going to go after the team. And that's all we got to see. So they have to show up. So they're probably going to show up in this volume, and then Salem will probably show up later. If everyone showed up, we're going to have an amazing season finale, I would assume. I would hope, at least, if they actually have Salem go to Atlas and start attacking people, and Cinder and Neo show up at the same time, or just, around there. That would be amazing. I just don't feel like we're going to get that much insane stuff. That would be cool, and maybe that's why things are moving kind of how they are, because it's really like a lot of talking in this volume, and I know a lot of people have kind of been hating on the volume because of that. And it definitely has been slowly but surely, and it can be slow and not have a ton of action, but we haven't really gotten much. Like, if the villains were doing a million things, but it was all just dialogue and things were like, oh man, this crazy thing happened and the heroes don't even know, that would be cool. But it's literally just been like, okay, they did that. You know, the last episode was the big thing that happened where they found out Tyrion was there, and they still don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Jacques and stuff like that. So it's like, all right, you know, it's cool, it's interesting, but it's not like hard hitting, and it's just a slow. It's an oddly slow paced season. Like, it can be slow paced. Like, Volume 4 made sense slow paced. They were literally, everyone was on journeys. That's kind of a slow paced, you know, storyline. This isn't. They're in the city. They're with Ironwood. The villains are hiding with it, you know, hiding in plain sight. One of the villains, literally, we find out worked on Penny. I thought they were gonna save that for a super long time, because I was like, oh, his thumb's over the picture. I wonder who that is. So I was glad they showed that, because I was like, okay, cool. Actually, I thought it was gonna be Jacques. That's who I thought it was gonna be, and I was like, oh, okay, it's probably his brother. I feel like that's gonna happen. I think they're brothers. But we'll see. But that was interesting. That was the other thing with Penny, finding out that the reason she was able to come back and it was exactly her is because it was Pietro's soul that gets separated to bring her back. So if she is dismantled or, you know, killed again, then he won't be able to do it. Like, it would kill him, and it wouldn't even be enough of his soul to actually bring her back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. I don't think she'll die because they just brought her back. I don't think they'll do that and be like, oh, Penny's back, and then they, you know, hit you again like, no, she's permanently dead this time. I feel like that would be weird. They kind of put it in there so now it can go either way, because it's like, oh yeah, we brought her back because, you know, she's a robot, and that was the weird thing. Like, well, she has a soul, but somehow she came back exactly the same, and it's because it's his soul. So, you know, it doesn't really explain the memory thing. That part, I think, would technically still be her. So that's the funny part, because I'm like, if she is a robot, like, technically, yes, she's a robot with a soul, which is why she technically has an aura. But memory-wise, it's not like his soul allows her to remember stuff. She's still a robot. He still has to, like, fix parts on her. He still rebuilt her body. So I think her having her memories has nothing to do with the soul thing. That's just, she wouldn't exist as a soul. She would just be a robot. She wouldn't be an AI, because that's technically what she is. So it would be interesting if they did kill her again, but it feels like it would be so weird to have that moment and then kill her again. But they did put it in there, so I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. It feels like they kind of put it in there to be like, we could kill her, and then, you know, for real, it's for real. But then it still feels oddly cheap. Even if we knew it was serious this time, it almost makes it pointless to have done it in the first place, just to bring her back for like a few episodes. Well, I mean, if it's only one season, I count it as a few episodes in the grand scheme of things. So to bring her back for like a few episodes feels like that would just feel odd to me. And then they kill her off again at the end of this volume. I'd probably be super annoyed with that. I'd be like, it would just feel too weird. It would be like way too close together. It'd be like, surprise, she's alive, and then we explain that she could die permanently, and then we kill her permanently right at the end. And it's just like, for what? It just, I don't know, for some reason it just wouldn't work for me. It would just feel too weird to have this amazing revival and then they just kill her off again. So they would have to do a really amazing job having her like sacrifice herself, you know, and that would be how she dies. It wasn't because of the enemies, it was because of her. And now that I say that, I feel like that might end up happening, which kind of worries me. I just don't want her to die again because it feels so soon, but we'll see what happens. I think Pietro's definitely dead. I think he'll die, but I think Penny will kind of live on, you know, hold on this memory and stuff. But decent episode. Robyn learning part of the truth was like, okay, that's cool. Finding out the stuff about Penny was interesting. The main thing that I find entertaining, of course, you know, we have our generic villain thing. Everyone else was like, okay, you know, Ironwood saw the whole deal with the soul, and so that's why he went with Pietro. And then you have the one dude, I mean, and he was so mad in that picture. That was my favorite part. Like, everyone's just like, and they just show him, and he was literally just looking right at Pietro like, like, I hate this dude. And I was like, man, it just doesn't get more villainous than the guy who can't even just look forward in an effing picture. He has to be mad in the picture to show how evil he is. But decent episode. It was kind of normal. And then, of course, by the end of the episode, everyone's invited to the Schnee Manor because Jacques is a douchebag, and he's like, check me out, I won. So why don't you guys come and have dinner so I can talk about how I won. And then, of course, he's going to try to, you know, push Ironwood out because that's been his whole thing. Like, you're costing me money and stuff like that. So looking forward to reviewing. I've seen the episode, but I'm looking forward to talking about the things that I do and don't like about that one because there's some interesting stuff in that episode as well. So really looking forward to talking about that one. But of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And with all the big secrets, also, one random little thing that happened in the beginning. Ren was like, militaristic is like the best way I want to describe it, just to keep it short. So he was like, yes sir, and everyone was like shocked and looked at him and stuff, and I just didn't care, and I was just like, does it matter that he did that? Is it weird that he did that? Of all the characters, he would totally do that. And there's a, if you watch my other review with the kissing thing, I was like, they've just done a bunch where it's like he does things and I'm like, it makes sense that his character would do that. It makes sense that he would be, the guy who would say yes sir and just be like, we need to fall in line and get this stuff done. He's still with them. I mean, obviously he wasn't like, we've been keeping a secret from you, which I thought they were going to do in the beginning because Nora was pissed and I thought they were finally just going to say it. And then she even yells like, man, all these secrets and stuff. And I'm like, oh, and then they just kept the secret. And I was like, oh, that's weird to be so mad about that and a bit hypocritical, personally speaking, but whatever. She's super pissed about secrets, and then there's secrets. So it's weird. That's the weird thing. That's one of the things that's been coming up too. Like a lot of people keep talking about secrets and stuff, where it's like, it's weird to keep secrets and it's bad to keep secrets, but they're all doing it because they follow behind RWBY, which I don't think they really need to do. I know they do that because obviously she's the main character, but I mean, sure, she's done some special stuff, but all in all, she hasn't done that much. I mean, just saying, like, not to be rude to the character, but she really hasn't. She hasn't done like this grand scale thing for everyone to just fall in line. She hasn't done like some Superman type stuff. She's done some insanely magical stuff, but so is Crow. He turns into a bird, and they thought that was insane. So it's like, does it really matter that she can flash some stuff? He can transform into an animal, and everyone thinks that's weird, which still blows my mind. I still find that to be the funniest thing. Everyone's like, magic isn't real, and I'm like, what? It's the funniest thing. Like, people have superpowers, and they're like, magic, that's wild. That I just find that funny. Every time I think about that, I'm like, how are people so weird about it? It's like in superhero shows in general when they say that, like, that can't exist. It's like, you have superpowers. You just sound dumb when you say stuff like that. Like, you're a part of that thing, and then you're like, that sounds fake. Like, well, that's dumb because you're doing it. So that's pointless. But that was an interesting little scene. Like, everyone seemed shocked, and I was just like, it's weird to be shocked. That makes sense that he'd do that. He's that character. I don't know. I don't think it'll make literally any difference whatsoever, except for when they get to a little part where he argues with somebody else. It'll most likely be Nora because they're, of course, together. Officially, I don't want to get into that whole thing again. But whatever. I feel like that'll happen. And then that would be a weird thing if they did it where they broke up because of that. It would just be dumb. I don't think that'll happen. And I hope it doesn't, because that would just, honestly, it just would be so stupid to me to even see that. Like, so they had this weird argument where I thought they were already together, and then they have to argue about how they now officially are together, so they kiss, and then they have an argument because he was like, yes, sir, and it would just be dumb. It would be so dumb. But either way, with the way things are kind of going, I would love to know your thoughts on them kind of including Robyn into the fold, and how long you think it might take, and how it'll kind of affect things, because I think her character, obviously she's a good character. She doesn't know everything that they're doing. Obviously, even Ironwood doesn't know everything that's going on. So it's like there's tiers to like what the heroes know, and that's kind of the thing that's really keeping everybody so separate, because there's secrets on top of secrets. So I would love to know how you guys think things are gonna be impacted with her kind of diving a bit deeper into the truth. So want to know your thoughts on that, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below, and of course, thanks for watching.